Francisco office, and in this segment we are going to introduce a new feature in Odoo Studio that allows you to add approvals in any specific user workflows. We'll go through a bit of an introduction about where to find these settings and how to utilize it, and also later on we'll go through some different workflows that kind of highlights how many different ways you can customize this settings to meet your exact approval needs. So let's get on with it. First of all, the difference between version 14 and version 13 in this manner is that in version 13, you can technically add approvals within any workflows, but you would need understanding of Python and also a little bit of understanding of how Odoo's internal infrastructure works. The good news in version 14 is that there is no coding required. You don't need to know Python. As long as you know a little bit of how Odoo Studio works, you're basically good to go. So as soon as you turn on Odoo Studio in any form, you can now click on a specific button that you would like to add your approval for, and then as soon as you click on it, you should be able to see this new feature or new settings that allows you to set approval rules, and we will go through one basic scenario of this just in a second. But then this approvals also actually allows you to add multiple people, also add some, you can also add a little bit of more gamification within that, and you can also set up rules on who can see this gamification as well as who can approve. So let's start with a simple scenario, and then later on we'll get increasingly complicated workflows from then on. So the first scenario that we are looking at for a simple one is in sales, and what we'll try to do is we'll add manager's approval before a salesperson can send out a quote to the customer. So let me jump into a demo environment, and here, as you can see on the screen, I have two user profiles open. One is my user ABC, always be closing, and then another one is manager of this ABC user. And what we'll do is we will add an approval in this database so that whenever ABC needs to send out a quote, it requires an approval from a VP of ABC. So first of all, we need to enable that approval workflow in administration form. So I'm going to go to sales, so sales app. And from sales app, now here is where we can create the quotation. So I'm going to click on create. And then here I already have a feature in Odoo that allows me to send out an email with the quotation that I set up. So here what I need to do is enable Studio first. And as soon as I enable it, if I click on this specific button where I want to enable approvals for, I should now see an option for me to set approval rules. So once I click on it, it's going to refresh this little segment and allow me to add a specific group of and also any specific description I want. Now these groups there are some default groups that are already added within Odoo as part of your user profiles, and you can select a specific group that you want by making it a little more bigger or popping it out in a different window. I can also group here by different ways too. So if you have multiple groups and you don't know where to go, I can just specify by, let's say, application, right? Group them all. And I can see that, okay, well, I want my sales administrator to set up an approval before my sales rep kind of sends out the quotation. So we'll do sales administrator. It basically says that existing entries cannot be modified, which is fine because we have already added that in. So that's why it's actually giving me that error. And then you have this, descriptions, and there is also limit per approval to this year. So this feature we'll talk about in the second scenario. But right now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to enable this feature, and then I'm going to close it out. So as soon as I close it out, Now I should see a little emoticon here, or avatar rather. So if I actually have an avatar here set up, then I should be able to see that avatar, and a user will know that it needs an approval from that specific user. So let's create one workflow and then see how that plays out. So I'm going to discard this right now from my VP of Sales profile. I'm going to jump into the actual user profile that will be creating my quotation. So if I now create this quotation, and actually I may have to refresh this since we set up those approval. So once I refresh the page, now I should be able to see that avatar already populated. And now let's create a quotation. So we'll choose our customer, we'll choose some products, and maybe add a little price. Maybe I want to sell them for $5. Save. And as soon as I save this, now if I try to send this to my customer by email, it will actually give me an error saying that, hey, it needs an approval. Now, if I hover my mouse on this specific avatar, it also says that the approval is needed. It's not green yet. So what I can do is I can schedule an activity for my VP of Sales that, hey, please approve this, right? So to approve the quote and assign it to my VP of ABC and schedule. So now that approval is set, and my VP of ABC will get a notification here saying that there is actually one activity that is due today that you need to perform. And if he clicks on it, he can see that this is the entry that needs to be approved. So all he needs to do, or she needs to do, is click on that little button and then say that I approve this quotation. So now that quotation has been approved, and either he or she can send it out by email, or the person that is responsible for creating that quotation should be able to send out that email over. So here is the email, here is the send button, and we are basically good to go. So the email has been sent out, and he or the salesperson can maybe mark this as done. So that's a basic scenario of how approval a feature works. Now, let's go through another workflow in different app to kind of see how, different ways you can manipulate this and maybe add multiple approvals. So it doesn't have to be just one approval that needs to do. So let's say within manufacturing, as soon as you are done with manufacturing a certain component, maybe you need an approval from your quality team, as well as your manager before you mark a manufacturing order done. So all you would need to do is click on this add an approval rule, which will allow you to add multiple people in there, where we will choose a specific user group. Let's say one is with manufacturing administrator, another one is for quality administrator. And then if you click on this limit approval to this rule checkbox, then Odoo will not allow manufacturing administrator to be able to approve quality. What it will say that, hey, you only have one thing to approve. You cannot approve more than one thing. And that's what basically this limit approval to this rule means. So you can have this kind of a control over the processes so that it goes exactly the way that you need it to go. Our next scenario is for accounting, and we actually need an approval before confirming an invoice. So with this scenario, I'll try to explain how you can gamify the system or add some gamification tool so that it makes it a little more appealing, right, for UI's perspective. So let's jump into another database where I have my accounting app open. And I am on my invoices section. So you can usually come from customers and invoices from here. And then currently, if I need to confirm, I can just confirm the invoice right here, right? But if I need to add some approvals in this scenario, I can again go to Studio, set up, click on the button that I need to get approval for, and set my approval rules, which will enable this feature. Now I can choose the approval group for accounting to, maybe like an accountant has the right to approve this invoice. And if I actually configure this rainbow man, that's basically where that gamification tool usually comes in. So if I enable this, I should be able to now configure a specific message that I want to do. Maybe well done, sure, I like it. Maybe I want to add a fade out emoticon here too. So I can maybe add a company logo, which is perfectly fine, but it is actually robust enough to allow you to add a little GIF or GIF, however you pronounce it, as well. So let's try that out. So I'm going to change this image and put this GIF into the system. Now, I can also make it visible only to, limit my visibility to a specific group as well. But once I'm set up, I just need to close it out. Now, again, I will see the avatar that I have specified over here into the button. And if I approve this, since I'm an administrator of this database, I can easily approve it by myself as well. And if I click on OK, it should allow me to oh yeah, I need to add a customer. That's right. Let me go create my customer. And save. And confirm. And it will show me that well done, as well as that emoticon that goes on. Why not make it a little more fun? So yeah, that's basically where that emoticon is. Now, the last piece of workflow that we'll do is for projects. And that is for having to need an approval before moving to next stage of the project. Now, one limitation of Odoo's this feature right now is that you can add any approval to a specific button. But if there is no button, then out of the box, you can't really add an approval for that feature. So what you can do instead is create a button by yourself and then add an approval on top of it. Let me show you an example. So I can be, let's say if we are in a project app, and then we have this task open. Now, generally, if I go to a task, I don't have any buttons to send out, set up, do a stage move rather. I can move my stages directly from here, let's say new or in progress. But if I turn on Studio, the Studio feature is not capable of adding that approval on this specific stage change. I have to have that button in order to do that. So you can use a little bit of server action in the backend and then edit the form in a way that it actually creates a button so that that button will basically look like this, that move to in progress. And that essentially just means that before moving any new opportunity to in progress, we need to add some approvals, right? So now, since that button is here, I can toggle that Studio, click on that button, and then set my approvals however way I want to. So hopefully that gives you a decent idea on different ways you can utilize this feature and also some of the limitations and how to overcome those limitations. That basically sums up my presentation. Oh yeah, one last thing I forgot to mention. Actually, you can, since Odoo is completely mobile enabled, you can have approvals created, submitted, approved, or generated on the fly on your mobile phone as well. So if you have a tablet or a cell phone, you just need to install Odoo's app. And then from then on, somebody can manage this processes on the fly or working from home, doesn't really matter. So yeah, that basically sums up my presentation. And I'll be happy to kind of answer any questions you may have.
Well, thank you so much, Parth, for that fantastic learning experience.
Of course.
We have a bunch of questions here for people for you. So the first one is there any way that the approvals send an email automatically notifying that he is required to approve?
So currently in version 14, I don't think so. But what you can do is you can schedule an activity, and that activity will automatically send the email, or you can create an automated action. So if you create an automated action, it's just an additional one step that requires. But once you fill it up, pretty much all the approvals will, as soon as you set it up, it will send out an email to whoever needs.
Thanks. I'll set up the approval. Someone set up the notification so the approver gets notified without setting the schedule activity manually.
Yeah, again, so that would be the automated action. So you would, if you Google how to set up Odoo automated action, it will probably walk you through the documentation. But at the same time, you can just either email me and I can certainly walk you through how to set that up as well.
And what is your?
It's P as in Papa, S as in Sam, U as in Umbrella, so PSU.
Perfect. Chat for everyone who wants to talk to this expert over here. Cool. Are the scripts, or are they meant to be redone migrating to future version?
So since it is part of Studio, I want to say yes, but I will have to double check on that.
Okay, excellent.
I can get back to, if you send me a quick email about this, we can take it out on a personal message for sure.
Okay, making sure my mic is on. It's on, so I'm not sure. Okay, cool. Can we have conditional approvals? For example, if there's a discount on the sales order, approval should be granted or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually often take this for granted, and that's why probably I didn't mention it in the email. But when you turn on that studio and you see that user profile, right next to it, there should be a Flask icon. If you click on that, that is your filter field, where you can not only set up the filter for what you just mentioned, but also another example would be, let's say, if the project or if the bill is over $5,000, then only you want to set up approvals or something like that, right? So you can set up all kinds of filters through that button.
Okay, that makes sense. Excellent. Yes, Chinyer, sorry if I butchered your name. I apologize. Is asking for some online videos, but again, email him and he'll send you all those videos.
Absolutely.
Some fantastic 64 approvals automatically without needing to send an email, sending a.
Would you mind repeating that? What is that?
Yeah. Can a purchase be scheduled automatically without needing to send an email asking for the concern?
Yeah, that sounds like something that might be require like a scheduled action. But I believe when you set up that approval, it's not a one-time thing. So once you set up that approval using Studio, it's a universal change that you're making. So once I set that up, basically all the, let's say if I set it up for a bill, like I mentioned, for maybe more than $5,000, you need to set up an approval, right? Once you set it up using Studio, you don't need to do it every time again. As soon as you create a bill, somebody creates a bill that has a total of $5,000, every time it will trigger an approval, and without that approval, you won't be able to move past that step.
Okay, that makes sense. Great. Alejandro asks, can we create a workflow to validate the tasks made on a CRM opportunity? For example, the sales rep register, let's say, a call to the client in order to pass to the next stage.
Yeah, certainly. So you can definitely do that as long as there is a button for it that exists within Odoo. So currently, if I remember correctly, in CRM, you can have a button for quotation. You can also have a button for, let's say, saving something, right? But I don't think there is a button for exactly what you just mentioned. So all you need to do is create a button using server action within Odoo, and once you create that button, you can set up approvals on it. And we are actually doing a really nice technical training on Odoo new version on October 5th. You might want to Google that, and that should go through some of the technical aspects, which will cover how to create buttons, server actions, etc.
And also, you can just email him; he'll teach you everything.
Well, I'll try.
Next, Dirk asks, does this Odoo app work with self-hosted systems?
Did you say sub-hosting? Oh, self-hosted system. I would imagine it should work with anywhere that you can use Studio with. So when you host Odoo on a local server, if the Studio is something that you have purchased with the enterprise version, it should work. But I will have to double check on that, but I have a good feeling that it should work.
Okay, perfect. Next question. That disappeared on me. My apologies. Is there a limit to how many users you can?
Not at all. At least not that I know of. I tried actually while preparing for this talk to add about like 9 or so, and then it didn't have any problem for me to have that set up. And as we went through in the video, you can actually have each user responsible for specific approvals as well, so that one person cannot, just approve multiple aspects of that specific task.
Okay, excellent. I'm hoping this really talk that my microphone is not great. Let me know. Omar asks about how you created that move to progress button, as you expected. Again, email him about that.
Yeah. Or attend our technical training on October 5th. Either way, you should be able to. But the basic idea is to create a server action within Odoo, and then based on that server action, you can create a button with a simple Python expression.
Cool. Simple, technical. Boss asks, is Odoo Studio available for
Point of sale? I don't think so. And the primary reason, as far as I'm aware, is that because of the POS is developed on Java, and Odoo, the rest of the Odoo platform is in Python. And Studio is a Python tool, if I remember correctly. So that's why I don't think it's available right now. But I'm pretty sure it's there are processes in movement to add it up in future versions. But I don't know the exact timeline on when it's going to be possible.
Yeah, point of sale is quite complex module.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Soren asks for a little bit more clarification. You said at the beginning of the presentation that you no longer need development as of version 14. So, to what extent is that played?
So what what I was referencing to is that before in version 13 or before version of those, if you had to create this simple approval, you would have to use some kind of coding, right? You would have to know how to use Python a little bit, or how understand how Odoo's infrastructure essentially works in the backend, and then you can create this kind of approval process. What version 14 is bringing is just that simple checkbox as soon as you turn on that studio, so that you don't need to, as long as there is a button available, you should be able to set up approval without needing to code anything. But again, when you need to enter a button, then of course you need to.
Perfect. That's helpful and very clear. Another question is, I saw I lost it. I had that one already. Is there validation in place to prevent conflicting approval workflows?
Very good question. Would you mind elaborating on what kind of conflict do you mean?
I believe if there's, for instance, you set up one approval for like 5,000 on EO, for instance, and then you have another one that also does something similar on it.
Gotcha. I haven't tested it, but I'll be happy to test it out and then let you know. If you don't mind emailing me, we can take that. We can chat about it.
Okay.
Oh, again, a good question. So Approvals app was actually launched as part of, I think, version 12 or 13. And that mainly targeted towards more of on the HR side. So let's say if you have a bunch of expenses, right? You are going on business trips and you need to expense out a certain hotel stay or maybe lunch with a client or something. So approval apps actually helps you very well with setting up those type of approvals where you need to approve that expense. And this is more for the regular business flow that you would potentially do within Odoo with respect to CRM, projects, manufacturing, help desk, etc. So they are two separate things, each individual objective.
Okay, very clear. Thank you for that. Next question is Ahmed asks, who can create approvals or workflows? Is it an admin, right?
So technically, anybody who has access to Studio will be able to create approvals since they have access to Studio. And I believe if you go to general settings, if you are an administrator in general settings, then you basically have access to Studio. So if you don't want somebody to have be able to set up approvals, you might want to limit their access for Studio itself.
Okay, cool. So,
yeah, access rights.
Let's see. Okay, so Bots asks, does approvals work in TreeView attributes as well? For example, creating multiple invoices from TreeView? Batch action.
Yeah, the batch action. I don't know if there's a button for it. So again, as long as we can generate a button for that batch action, if the button exists, then yeah, I think you should be able to. But I will have to actually play around with it a little bit to give you an exact answer. But yeah, if there's a button for it for that batch action, I would imagine that you should be able to set up approvals.
Okay. I think you're right. Next, Chris asks, we have a couple more minutes. Do you need to activate the approval app for this to work, or will you just need Studio to do this?
Yeah, you just need Studio. You don't need approval app. As long as you have Studio, you're good to go.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. Next question we have here. Is there any extra charge for this feature?
No, yeah. Again, as long as you have Studio, you are basically good to go. So Studio is a paid app that is available in Enterprise. But as long as you have Studio, you're basically good to go.
Excellent. And is Studio available in Community?
Ooh, I don't think so. Not at least right now. So you would have to have Enterprise version of Odoo.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thank you for that. We do have a couple more minutes. So if any more questions do pop up, please let us know. Otherwise, considering that time, we might just need to wrap it up at this point. I think that's probably about it. I'm not seeing any new questions. So again, if you want to email Parth, very knowledgeable, very willing to answer all your questions, please feel free to email. It's in the chat. Or can you just give us that one more time? Yeah, it's P as in Peter, S as in Sam, U as in umbrella. So psu@odoo.com. Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate it.
Have a good one, everyone.
See ya.